Hey, and welcome to Fan Theory Queries, where we analyze fan theories from all over the internet, but mostly Reddit. I'm Laura.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Spencer, and I'm going to start off the show with my theory of the episode that I've chosen for everybody. Let's talk about a little old show called Gilligan's Island.
That is
did you guys watch
show.
it? I loved that show. Did you guys watch that on TV Land?
My mom was a big fan of it, so it was kind of always on, and I would watch it from time to time, but eventually it got to the point where it's just too corny for me.
Oh,
Honestly,
I loved
don't
the
remember
professor's
being-
inventions.
I didn't remember being drawn into it that much.
It
In
was
my
like the
day-
OG Lost.
I know you're not that much younger than me, but before TV Land, it was Nick at Night.
Yep.
That's what I meant to say is Nick at Night.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. TV Land was its
much
own channel.
That's right. That's
Nick at
right.
Night was
Nick at Night, you're right.
what happened on Nickelodeon at night. Why? Why did they choose on Nickelodeon, like, they had Nick Jr. in the morning, then Nickelodeon during the day, and then now we're going to play shows from like 30 years ago, 40 years ago. What?
I don't know.
Why did...
And they
I
started
don't
playing
get it.
Friends, didn't they? Wasn't that funny? Anyway, let's talk about my theory.
Yes.
This is from there. This theory you can find in several places. I actually didn't find this one directly from Reddit, but the author from this particular website is Joseph Rosenberg, and the website is like ttlf.tripod.com. It's an old website from the 90s probably, but the title of the theory is The 7 Deadly Sins of Gilligan's Island. The 7 deadly sins of Gilligan's Island theory is quite simple. Each of the 7 characters on the island represents each of the 7 deadly sins. Now, this theory seems to fit upon initial inspection. There are technical difficulties when you get down to the man himself, Gilligan. Now run with me on this one. The professor, 1. Most obvious is the professor, who fits pride to a T. Any man who can make a ham radio out of some wire and 2 coconuts has to be very pretty cocky. His character was later revised and given a series of his own called MacGyver. Farm Girl, 2. For the sin of envy, we need look no further than Mary Ann, who may have worn those skimpy little tops but could never achieve Ginger's glamour. As an interesting and completely irrelevant side note, a nationwide survey of college students a few years ago revealed that the professor and Mary Ann were voted most likely couple to have, well, on the island.
Goodness.
One hot tamale. 3. And who could doubt for a moment that Ginger is lust incarnate? Sure, the kids were supposed to think she was acting, but we all know what being deprived episode after episode was doing to her. You know and I know that glazed look wasn't boredom, my friends. Mr. Howell, 4. What kind of person takes a trunk full of money on a 3-hour cruise? Mr. Howell gets my vote for greed. We are now left with 3 characters and 3 deadly sins. We have Gilligan, the skipper, and Mrs. Howell, to whom we must match gluttony, sloth, and anger. As you can see, there is a Gilligan problem here. 5. Certainly we can further eliminate Mrs. Howell from this equation by connecting her with sloth. She did nothing during her many years on the island, and everybody knows it.
Yep.
6 and 7. This leaves anger and gluttony, either of which the skipper had no shortage. He was, after all, a big guy with the tendency to hit Gilligan with his hat at least once an episode. After much consideration, I have decided that he can easily do double duty covering the 2 remaining deadly sins. So here we have the 7 deadly sins trapped in an endlessly recurring hell of hope followed by denial and despair, forced to live with each other in our TVs until the last rerun ends. And who is their captor? What keeps them trapped there? Gilligan. Satan. Satan Faust. Gilligan is Satan. Think about it. So that's the theory.
Okay. Well, while you...
Interesting.
When you were reading the first bit about the professor, I happened to open that link to that website. Holy smokes, that looks like... What was it? There was some place where you could build your own website before MySpace when we were younger. And I can't remember what it was called, but I mean, like, you made your own website, you had the backgrounds and all this stuff, and you had a guest book, and you had people sign your guest book. I can't
Not
remember
Zynga,
what it was.
right?
No, I
remember.
didn't use Zanga. But yeah, I
Anyway.
went and looked at that website. Dude, that is so old. So
Yeah, like I said,
yeah,
there
this
are
has been around for
variations
a
of
while.
this. Yeah, there are variations of this, but they'll pretty much, some will go to the lengths of saying that Gilligan was Satan, especially because he's always foiling everything and he's always wearing red.
Mm-hmm.
But some will give him sloth, and they give Mrs. Howell something else. I forget, but maybe she was gluttony. I
Probably
don't know.
gluttony, because you can't not give the skipper anger.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
That's true.
So, Michael, do you feel like each of these characters has enough of a differentiation in their portrayals in the script to believably represent a single deadly sin?
So I would say the last time that I actually watched this, I was probably about 6, maybe. So it's been a while. I don't remember a lot about the show. But from what I remember, I would say yes, that's actually probably pretty accurate as far as them representing the 7 deadly sins and the ones that were chosen in the actual theory too. I feel like that represents each character pretty well. So,
Okay, so
yeah.
let's clarify this theory. I think what we're saying is what the general idea is that the creator of the show intended for these characters to represent the 7 deadly sins and to kind of be like a commentary on that and how they play out on an island. So let's just kind of clarify that. Laura, what are you thinking?
So
Does that sound...
even
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
even if you're not like an avid watcher, or it's been a long time since you've watched it, or like me, I mean, it's so easy with Gilligan's Island to just have like a general knowledge about the show, just because it was
Yeah.
in the zeitgeist and I mean, I know exactly each of those character tropes because it was such a common thing in writing for TV shows of that day that you had those tropes. And yeah, this author, this person who Joseph, Josef, so that's a fancy Joseph. He pinned each of those tropes to the 7 deadly sins, which I mean, I think there's good ground in that, but that just comes from like TV writing from the day, I think. So,
So I think Archie Bunker is clearly anger,
oh yeah,
Yeah.
right?
oh yeah. What would Edith be?
Annoying.
I don't know.
But you're right. I mean, I think when it comes to sitcoms of the day especially, it seems like there's a lot of stock characters being repeated here and there because it worked for the time. So we have to determine was it just simply a stock character thing? Or is there more to it? Is there a deeper level? Unfortunately, we don't have any commentary from comments to the theory. But in my looking for like more versions of this theory, I came across some interesting details.
Well,
Okay.
share.
I will. These are bombshells here, folks. All right. So first thing I came across was a link to this article from NPR. So Gilligan's Island was created by Sherwood Schwartz. And
Classic.
this quote shocked me. Years after the show ended, its creator, Sherwood Schwartz, admitted that each of the characters represented one of the 7 deadly sins.
No
Pride,
way.
the professor, anger, Skipper, lust, Ginger, and the rest. Gilligan was supposed to be sloth. Okay.
Oh,
Okay? Ready?
Yeah.
okay.
In a 2001 interview with TVParty.com, Sherwood Schwartz, or the interviewer, says, "How did you decide on 7 as the magic number for the characters?" Sherwood Schwartz: "I don't know. A lot of people have written to me saying they understand that's the 7 deadly sins. That was never in my mind, but they've explained it to me. It could have been 8, it could have been 6. I couldn't see 12 people." So in that interview, he says no. And I was confused. And then I saw that one of the sources for his quoting that it was the 7 deadly sins was a book that he wrote. And inside the book, because I was looking for a quote, I was like, there has to be a quote of him actually saying this thing. Because everyone, and almost all of these theories that I found, they are citing him as saying he based these characters on the 7 deadly sins. So here is where the translation gets messed up. In this book that he wrote, so he's talking to his wife, about the concept of the show. He's basically saying that he wants the people to be like an allegory, but he said, I'm glad I didn't say, this is an actual quote from the book, I'm glad I didn't say allegory in the meeting. Then says something else occurred to him before adding to his wife, and I'm glad I didn't say the castaways were symbolic of the 7 deadly sins. Note, at no point in the book does he claim an actual link between the characters to the 7 deadly sins, not where he describes the birth concept, nor anywhere else. It's only mentioned in passing during the one conversation with his wife. One further piece of evidence is I watched one more interview with him in 2010. He says, I don't know why I fixed on the number 7, but that's what I did. In his deepening of his explanation, he said, basically, these people were supposed to be representative of different types of people. They just basically happened to represent the 7 deadly sins.
So real quick, I'll say while you were looking that up, I looked, and unfortunately Mr. Schwartz is no longer with us. He passed in 2011. But he was, from what I could tell on that timeline, 2001, he would have been 84 years old. So, I mean, some people, they're doing great at that age.
That was going to be
Some
my
people,
question. Yeah.
Some people, that's what, when he said that interview was in 2001 where he was going, what? 7 deadly sins? I was like, he's an old man.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have some information, whether it's reliable or not, from the source himself. And we have dozens of websites across the internet. Oh, I saved the best thing for last. I'm sorry, I forgot about this. After this, we're going to have to go to lifeway.com and get Gilligan's Island and the 7 Deadly Sins DVD Leader Guide. There's a Bible study based on this.
You're
Are you
joking.
kidding me?
I'm not.
Oh,
Did you know that the
that?
creator of Gilligan's Island said that he based 7 castaways on the 7 Deadly Sins? In this study, there are 7 sessions. Each session takes approximately an hour to complete. But yeah, basically, they go through the 7 Deadly Sins, like a character analysis, to learn about the 7 Deadly Sins in this Bible study.
Is nuts. It's by
That's hilarious.
Jim Howell, Judy
fascinating.
Northcutt Gartner, and Stephen Skelton. Wow.
It's almost like it could be a VBS, Vacation Bible School theme.
Seriously, I bet it probably is. So yeah, on
somebody's gotta
Amazon,
reviewed it.
on Amazon for that Bible study, it has 5 reviews and it's got a 4.7.
Whoa. Not bad.
But then on christianbook.com, it's got 4 reviews and it's got a 2.5. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe that blows my mind. Oh my gosh. Somebody
I know, isn't that fascinating?
That's amazing.
that you were right. That was the best for last.
Okay, so we have some thoughts. We've got some details. We've got some bizarre Bible studies. I think I have enough information in my brain to formulate a rating of this theory. What about y'all?
Yeah.
I think I'm there.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael, why don't you explain our rating scale real quick?
The highest rating that we have is genius. This is reserved only for the best theories, which we believe are better than the actual canon. The next step down is plausible. It's a good theory, it's believable. The next is unlikely. Not a terrible theory, but like the name says, pretty unlikely. And then last thing is preposterous. These are the theories that are just stupid. Basically, we're all dumber for having listened to them.
Laura, why don't we start with you?
Okay, I'm going to say this is preposterous. Because the old man had no idea what he was talking about. I'm sorry. Sherwood Schwartz, I have so much respect for you. I mean, the contributions that man had for television and the things that we do now for 3-camera comedies and stuff like that, like, yes, he did a huge thing for the world. But, I mean, you have to be a little bit nutty also to go for that. And I think he was full on crazy. And this, I don't think he even knew what he was doing, apparently. It kind of sounds like he admits that. So I'm going to go with the preposterous on this one.
All right, Michael, what about you?
This may come as a shocker, but I am also going preposterous. It's just...
Okay.
It's for the same reasons Laura cited. It's just kind of ridiculous.
Okay, it's not genius. I'm going to say unlikely, and the reason why I'm not going straight to preposterous is because, we kind of talked about this a little bit back whenever we talked about the Friends theory, where they developed the character of Joey kind of inadvertently as this character that has ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's kind of what happened here, is he wasn't intentionally creating these characters to be representative of the 7 deadly sins. But I think that's just, you have these tropes that just happen to, I mean, there's always, in comedies, not always, but there's a token seductress person, is there, right?
Yeah.
But someone's
Very
always
doofy
lazy.
person.
Yeah.
Yep.
So those just happen to be the 7 deadly sins, I guess. And as far as Gilligan being Satan, then I would say that is preposterous. But yeah, that's where I'm going to land on that. Unlikely, kind of accidentally doing that thing. So that's all I got.
Cool.
So, Laura, Michael, have y'all ever had someone completely change your life by introducing you to something super cool and amazing that you probably would have never come across if it were not for that person?
Yes, for me, it was back in 2008 when you introduced yourself to me.
And for me, it was back around 2016 or so when Laura introduced me to you, Spencer.
And you both have clearly had a life like no other, thanks to me.
Yes, like no other.
And so, dear listener, you can have the same impact on someone's life by introducing them to fan theory queries, where they will not only be positively affected by me and my vocal presence, but also by my 2 fantastic co-hosts who have also been known to change people's lives. In other words, do a good work, tell the world about our show, and you will probably go to heaven for it.
Let me guess. You wrote this bit while your ADHD medication was at its peak effectiveness, right?
Absolutely.
So the next theory is from Yellow Flash 986, and that's that in the Marvel movie Endgame, it's about the reason that Tony had to die, basically. So the user says, and bear with me on this, there's a lot of typos and things, so I'm going to read it as it is. So just prepare yourselves.
I am prepared.
So it says, I'm sure we all thought that Doctor Strange could have done more in the Endgame battle to defeat Thanos, and since Thanos didn't have the Infinity Gauntlet, at least in the beginning of the battle, Strange or any other wizard could have easily neutralized Thanos by trapping him and his army in the mirror dimension, from which Thanos broke out in their battle on Titan by using the Power Stone. So we know it makes perfect sense in Doylist perspective to kill Tony.
What?
I don't know, that's what they put. Doylist. If anybody knows what that is, let me know. Perspective to kill Tony, but any other character could have snapped away Thanos, granted they are willing to die for it, and there are characters like Drax who would be happy to do so, and it's not like someone had to snap away the army and kill himself in the process to defeat Thanos, and it's fairly possible that the Avengers could have managed to defeat him manually, albeit with a lot more casualties. So why... So why did Strange direct Tony alone to do the ultimate sacrifice, implying it is the only way they can win? It is because Tony will be way too overpowered if he survived the Endgame battle, and he would become the cause for even more conflicts in the near future. I mean, think about it. He would have time travel tech after Endgame, and they just defeated a Thanos from a different timeline. He would reacquire his ego/paranoia to protect Earth, which he somewhat lost after getting destroyed by Thanos' death, would probably develop an even clearer God complex now that he has time travel tech. He would probably mess with other timelines or do something like setting up his own version of Illuminati. Hank Pym would deny him Pym particles, but Tony probably manages to make them on his own, which should be relatively easy for him, especially since he had already worked with them. Not to mention, there will be another civil war if other Avengers find out what he is trying to do. Also, imagine if he manages to make an Infinity Gauntlet, which could be safely wielded, as how they spelled it, by a human, and he can actually become some kind of god in their universe. And one could argue that the Tony we see in the Endgames values his family way too much to turn himself into someone like that or even care all that much about Avengers stuff. But then again, he also managed to make Edith for Peter before his demise. Too long didn't read. Strange lets Tony die in the Endgame because Tony, with the time travel tech, would be way too powerful and attracts even more trouble if he remained alive after the Endgame. First off, I love how they keep calling it the Endgame.
Yeah. It's
instead
proper
of
now.
Avengers Endgame. Yeah. So I do have a few thoughts on this. Before we get to you, Spencer, though, I want to hear from Laura and see what she has to say.
I'm curious about when this theory was written, because looking at it through a multiverse of madness lens, all I can think is, okay, so he denies Tony the chance to mess up other worlds and ends up messing other worlds himself, right?
Yeah.
It says it was written 1 month ago, May 13th.
Yeah. So this guy...
I don't know. I mean this is...
Yeah.
This theory...
Okay, so where are you at? Like, why are you having trouble forming sentences?
I think it's just that's what's confounding me is... So this guy he had to have seen Multiverse of Madness before he wrote this. Because I understand after we watched Multiverse of Madness, a lot of people started coming out being like, why did Doctor Strange only agree to that one solution? Because surely there were other ways to win. But he only wanted the one where Tony died. So
and this
I'm a little
person is
confused by
saying
that.
it's because Tony would be too powerful.
Right. Well, didn't Doctor Strange end up being a little too powerful and ruining other worlds, like what this guy's writing about?
Well,
also, I'm a little curious as well about the setting up his own version of the Illuminati. I thought that our Earth's Iron Man was on the Illuminati.
No.
Or am I wrong? That was a different Iron Man, wasn't it?
No.
There was no Iron Man.
There was no Iron Man.
Doctor Strange.
Not in that movie, I know.
But
the original
in the comics,
Illuminati.
In the comics, yes. Tony Stark is one of the founding members of the Illuminati.
Exactly.
On our Earth, yes.
So maybe this person is discounting comics, because I was like, but that's what he did. He did join the Illuminati. I mean...
Yeah. I think this person is basing this solely on the movie Endgame.
Okay. I mean, I completely understand what he's saying. He's saying that Doctor Strange and his pride is thinking that he knows everything, because that's what we've seen. And that's a characteristic part of his quote-unquote journey in Multiverse of Madness, of him being the one always having to hold the knife, so to speak. But at this point in time, he thinks, okay, I know what's right. And I can see, Tony, we don't want Tony getting out of control. He's not thinking about himself. And so, like, I'm not saying I agree with this, but this is, I completely understand what this guy is saying, because he could start the Illuminati. And if he did, if he's the super powerful Tony Stark, he could put the wrong evil people in this Illuminati. Who knows?
So what you're saying is Doctor Strange saw it more as, I can handle the responsibility, Tony can't.
No, not necessarily. I just saw it as, if we're saying the whole idea, and we believe that Doctor Strange only sees one possibility that works, he sees that the only way this works is if Tony is the one that does the sacrifice. Because if someone else does the sacrifice, Tony will go on to live and become an evil threat to everybody.
Okay.
He doesn't think of himself as being a threat to everybody. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that this should actually be approached on an even more astral, like broad level. I don't think we should focus on the fact that it's Tony. I think that Doctor Strange is probably seeing this as almost kind of like a butterfly effect. Like, if it's not this one specific person at this one specific time, it could have been anybody, but it just happened to be Tony in this timeline, that if it doesn't happen like this, then all of the other stuff that happens after this is not going to play out the exact same way. And it could potentially lead to even worse things happening. Maybe it's Tony doing all the stuff that this user explained. Maybe it's just somebody completely different. Because Tony didn't die, it completely changed the timeline. And I mean, not to get like too in depth or cosmic about it, but like, it just, like I said, the butterfly effect, just one little thing can change the entire course of the future. And I think that's the way that Doctor Strange was actually approaching it. I don't know if he was necessarily thinking specifically, oh, Tony's going to probably have his ego come back and turn evil. But instead, like, I saw this is Tony killing himself or sacrificing himself to do the snap. And this is the outcome, the one outcome where we were able to defeat Thanos. So that's kind of the way I'm seeing it. But we do have a couple of comments that I want to read through before we start making final decisions on this. So this one is from 7 Ryan 8 hours. I don't know what they're trying to do with that, but they say the quantum GPS tech is most definitely still alive in the MCU. I would guess there will be a lot more threats who would/could potentially still use it.
So they're saying that the one point to this person is saying that Tony had to die says it doesn't matter because someone's going to get their hand on it anyway.
Yeah, that's essentially what they're saying. But for me, if I were going to perceive Tony as a threat, it wouldn't just be the time travel technology.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he essentially created Ultron. Like, there's so many different things that he could potentially do and create that would be dangerous for the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really, it doesn't really matter to me whether it's just that one thing or not. But
well, and isn't the quantum GPS tech pretty similar to the tech that the TVA uses?
I don't know if they
which
really
was developed by
into
Kang.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's similar stuff. I don't know if it's the same exact technology, but it's a similar concept essentially.
Right.
Okay, so this next comment is from 5 Nations 54. They say the character development of Tony Stark tells the opposite story of what you're trying to make the argument for. But the character development alone is not the only reason why his sacrifice meant something. From the time of Iron Man to Endgame, he went through stages of personality development. The culmination of Tony Stark's character development resulted in his death because when he saw Strange hold up his finger, he knew in that moment that he was the one who was meant to. It was the ultimate sacrifice to disregard ego and embrace humility, to give up his life to save the billions of others. Why did it have to be him? Perhaps out of all the futures that Strange saw, he saw the one where Tony Stark's ambition was no longer a clear and present danger to the world that allowed him to defeat the threat of Thanos and diminish the influence Stark would have otherwise had if he stayed alive, probably resulting in more villains being created, even though they did, Mysterio specifically. It's very possible that if Tony Stark had stayed alive, he may have caused a lot more harm than good. And then we have one last comment who kind of takes it in the opposite direction. The user's name is Maybe Tom Bombadil, which I absolutely love, and Tolkien fans out there unite. Yes. So he says, honestly, in universe, there was no reason Tony had to die.
Thank you.
Captain Marvel could have flown off with the gauntlet. They didn't need to immediately get to the van. In fact, doing so without proper planning would have destabilized the timelines. Further, had Tony stopped to think, he would have remembered he has an army of orbital drones that he could have deployed to mop up the bad guys, as seen in Spider-Man Far From Home. His communication network is already established to work all the way in near orbit in Infinity War, so he just needed to identify targets and serve as a forward observation platform until Friday identified all friends from foes. With Thanos' ship destroyed, Wanda could have returned to kill him and continue a rampage. Or, like everyone's favorite online idea, Ant-Man could have shrunk into a pebble, fluid in Thanos' digestive system, and then crew them made it the size of a boulder.
Okay. What Tom Bombadil's trying to say is that Ant-Man shrinks down really small, flies up Thanos' butt, and then gets big again and explodes.
Why does that be his butt?
Anyway.
He could have gone down his nose. Yes, I agree.
Yes.
But or
as long as he gets inside of him and expands,
could,
the same effect happens. Anyway, they continue. Tony's death was narratively predetermined by movie contracts. The fact is, RDJ is contractually required to be paid more for each successive appearance. The longer a character role occurs, the more money it's worth to the performers. There's no character reason or motivation for his death, and in fact, his death is pretty selfish. He only cooperated in order to protect the life of his daughter. The comics have well identified that the Infinity Gauntlet as being capable of resetting the timeline to the exact moment of the previous snap. It is literally a deus ex machina MacGuffin. Tony is shown to be impulsive and rushing headlong into danger, but he's also shown to be a planner and a person who thinks on his feet with the resources he has available. In each of his movies, that's how he defeats the big bad at the end. There's multiple moments where he had time to take a breath and plan his next move during the battle, and he never does. That's poor writing, although the movie is pretty good at getting you to suspend your disbelief so you're not noticing it.
Not everyone.
Okay, so with all that said, do any of those comments change the way you guys were thinking or what you had said before?
It completely supports what I was thinking.
Okay.
What you've always thought since we saw Endgame.
Well, okay, so we're not... Side note, we're going to discuss this theory and this theory alone. If you'd like to hear more discussion about me and all problems I have with Endgame, you can become a patron. We have a Patreon now, and we're going to have bonus content such as Grumpy Spencer's grievances, and I will complain about things, and these people will make fun of me for complaining about them. You can access those by pledging $5 a month. Patreon.com/fantheoryqs.
Anyway,
awesome.
So this theory, I will say, I mean, it's true about the contracts. Each film that he appears in where he is a central character. So like he got paid the same in Spider-Man Homecoming that he did in Infinity War. He got paid the same amount for those, but it was because he wasn't the central character. And it's true, it increases exponentially. That's written in the contract when you first sign. And so I agree with that, but at the same time, maybe Tom Bombadil, I mean, I felt the same way about, like, if we're talking about Captain Marvel being the mightiest hero, why didn't she take care of it? Or Wanda, we've seen now how incredibly powerful she is. Why couldn't she have fixed the whole... I mean, what she did, the Black Bolt, we couldn't have done something along those lines to Thanos, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I know people are going to come at me with, well, she wasn't in touch with the real Scarlet Witch yet. She had to go through the Westview Hex fiasco in order to to get to that power. Okay, then I'll give you that one. But Captain Marvel should have had this locked down. The way that she came through and destroyed the ship all on her own, come on.
As much as I dislike Captain Marvel's character for the same reasons that I kind of dislike Superman, she's just way too powerful in my opinion. So is Superman. But I have to admit that you're right. There's no reason why she couldn't have just flown off with the gauntlet and not get touched just long enough for them to take out Thanos some way, you know?
Yep.
It came down to... I don't want to dig on the writers because they did a fantastic job with the rest of the movie. Like, I loved, honestly, I loved Endgame. I thought it was so much fun, and I want to support it. But I would say if there's one thing that they missed, that they probably just had to find a solution for, just to make it more air quotes entertaining. I think that's where they missed an opportunity. But
so I'm not going to fault the franchise for Robert Downey Jr. basically maxing out the money that they can pay him. Yeah. That happens in other franchises. So like, that's not a flaw. The flaw is how it was dealt with. I'm going to criticize the writing. I didn't write the movie, so it's not my responsibility to find a solution, but it is my responsibility to pick it apart, and I will one day. But as far as keeping it into this theory, I think this person really nails the head. What a lot of my argument and problem with this movie comes down to is the whole time travel thing. But the comics have well identified the Infinity Gauntlet as being capable of resetting the timeline to the exact moment of the previous snap. It's literally a Deus Ex Machina MacGuffin. We don't have to talk about Captain Marvel blowing up a spaceship. If Hulk can use the Infinity Gauntlet and snap right back to whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But as far as this theory goes, there's no reason for Tony to die. They've not established a reason for that. In fact, I was angry that Tony died because he did go through a ton of character development over the franchise. He finally was happy. He finally had a family. He had a daughter. And then they kill him.
Yeah.
That made me mad.
I'm completely on the opposite side of you with this. I was so happy that Tony died. I wanted him to die a lot longer before this.
And maybe he could have. Maybe that should have been the solution.
After Iron Man 1, I could not stand his character for the entire rest of his existence in the MCU. He just became unbearable to me, and he was too arrogant, and I hated his ego, and just like he had some funny, snarky moments. That was it. Like everything else about him was super annoying to me.
Don't misunderstand. I'm not a fan of the character either. But as far as what they did and over the journey that he had, again, I'm not saying that I was sad that Iron Man died. I'm sad for the situation that was created, that this man that has been through a lot finally did get kind of what he wanted.
And now we'll take it all away.
And we'll take it all away.
Yeah. Well,
and leave all these other people who don't have those things and have admitted that I'll never get that. Nope, we're not going to sacrifice any of them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make it even that bigger of a sacrifice for me. Oh, well, he had a family, but he put that aside for the greater good of everybody. Like that doesn't work for me. But Tony has everything at his disposal. We've talked about. There really is. There's absolutely no reason other than the fact that he was being paid too much money.
Yeah.
And they did not do a good job of explaining that in the writing of the movie. Maybe they should have seen it coming. Maybe he should have, like you said, we should have killed him off whenever everybody still hated him. I don't know. But
I think he should have died in Civil War, personally. But yeah, like you could make the argument with Endgame, or not Endgame, but Infinity War even, where honestly nobody had to die if Star-Lord had just held his stuff together.
Don't you do that. Don't.
I love Star-Lord. He's one of my favorite characters. And I hated that they made his character do that, because it's kind of his fault that they got in the situation they were in Endgame. If he could have just kept his cool for like 30 seconds longer, done. There wouldn't have been any issues.
Absolutely.
But that's another instance where writers create stupid situations just so they can have more to write about. And that's one thing that I absolutely hate in any franchise, is whenever they make characters do stupid things just for the sake of creating situations and problems where they can keep things going. Like, come up with a more creative way of making it happen.
No, it was like, it literally is responsible for the disappearing of half the population of the Earth.
Yep.
Is him.
And you're right. Nobody ever says anything about it.
Nope.
Exactly. And he's never faced any repercussions.
Would not have done that. He would not have done that.
Yeah.
I don't care. I know he's made out to be a goof, whatever. With those stakes, I believe he would not have done that.
Yeah.
And like you said,
Love will make you do stupid things, but like sacrifice half of the entire universe? No. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, that was enough of a tangent. I think we should probably wrap this one up.
Okay.
So I don't want to rate this one first, since it was my theory.
I'll go first. I don't have any problems.
Do it.
I think this is preposterous in every sense of the word. There is no reason. This says the reason Tony had to die. No. This is not why he had to die. He did not have to die. If he had survived Endgame, who knows? I mean, he could have gone on. He had a family to live for. He had tech, sure, but so does everybody. Everybody can become a villain. Strange, Wanda. I mean, you can use that argument for almost anybody. Not almost anybody, but many people. So I don't know what Strange was smoking whenever he saw this vision, that this was the only way. But he most certainly did not see a future where Tony became so powerful because he survived Endgame. Preposterous. Smack my stamp.
I'm going to agree that it's preposterous, and I'm going to riff on some of the points that you were talking about, Spencer, of like, we've already seen the character change. We have seen Tony change, that he is not that person anymore, that he wouldn't become what the author was talking about, the author of this theory, including that when we can find him in Endgame, he's living like a recluse almost with his family. I mean, he is focused 100% on his family. So I just don't see him using tech in a bad way. And saying that he did it selfishly to protect his daughter, I'm sorry. If I'm going to be selfish, I'm actually going to save myself in order to be with my daughter.
Yeah.
This person must not be a parent.
Well, it's kind of the opposite definition of being selfish. Selfish is about yourself, not for others. That's selfless.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking when you read that. So I'm going to agree this is preposterous?
So I've bounced in between two different ratings throughout this whole thing, and I honestly am still not 100% sure where I land. You know what? I've got to give it preposterous as well. I was between unlikely and preposterous, but it's just enough to edge the needle over into preposterous territory for me. For pretty much all the reasons that you guys listed, I just think it's kind of ridiculous. And plus, having to read what this guy wrote made me feel dumber.
Seriously.
Yes.
It hurt my brain.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I have a quick question for you. Speaking of preposterous, Spencer, are you more of a Mickey Mouse guy or a Bugs Bunny guy?
Oh, Bugs Bunny all the way. Hands down. No contest.
And what about you, Michael?
Ooh, I don't know. This is a tough one because, see, I grew up with both of them. I was introduced to Mickey at an earlier age.
Great. Well, thanks for that, Michael. I think it's time for a message break.
No, it's time for me to read my theory.
No, Laura. Message break.
No. Theory.
Message break.
Theory.
Message break.
Theory.
Message break.
Theory.
Theory.
Message break.
Ha! So you agree. Time for a quick message break, everyone. We'll be right back.
You're despicable. Okay, and we're back, and I'm going to take us in a totally different direction from all of the stuff we've been talking about with deadly sins and why did Tony have to sacrifice his life. And my theory comes from Looney Tunes.
Yes.
Mine's from Looney
cleanser.
Tunes. This is Daffy Duck has brain damage.
Oh, no. Not a palate cleanser. This is sad.
From Braden Best.
Who hurt you, Braden?
Braden had a lot of time on their hands. So in the 1938 short Daffy Duck and Egghead, one of Daffy's first appearances, Daffy decides to sing a song explaining his origin story. The song is none other than The Merry-Go-Round Broke Down, which the tune of is then carried out through not Merry Melodies, but Looney Tunes as the theme song of the show that you always hear whenever it starts up. You'll recognize the tune here. Here we go. The lyrics reveal a tragic backstory. My name is Daffy Duck. I worked on a merry-go-round. The job was swell. I did quite well till the merry-go-round broke down. Hoo-hoo! 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 The guy that worked with me was a horse with a lavender eye. Around in whirls we winked at girls till the merry-go-round broke down. And then he plays a flute. And I kind of like to pretend like it's in the style of Lizzo and he's twerking at the same time. And it kind of is if you watch the cartoon. You can find it on YouTube. Okay. Up and down and round it we sped. That dizzy pace soon went to my head. Now you know why I'm dizzy and do the things I do. I am askew and you'd be too if the merry-go-round broke down. Hoo-hoo! 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 If the merry-go-round broke down.
Well done.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Bravo.
Thank you. I like that we have the flavor text or like the description of the cartoon included in here. When he's holding out the note for broke, his neck stretches out really long so that, normal modern Daffy, he has a white line around his neck. But in the classic cartoon, so in 38, he had a blue line and his neck stretches out so much that there's like 10 different blue lines on his neck. All right. So coming off of that, this implies that Daffy is quote unquote screwy because of a past head injury. Basically, he worked at a carnival and was in charge of the merry-go-round. Business must have been slow that day because he and his coworker, the horse with the lavender eye, decided to take it for a joyride and flirt with passersby. But just then, the ride had a malfunction and sped out of control, and Daffy was never the same. Daffy Duck is a victim of careless workplace conditions.
OSHA. OSHA.
Yeah, somebody call Toby.
Yeah. Pretty much every incarnation of Daffy has a screw loose, whether it manifests in his, quote, bounce away and hoot routine. Oh, that's classic. I haven't seen that in a while. Which the OP is attributing to a possible Tourette's syndrome, which incidentally can be brought on by a head trauma. or being, quote, not quite there, as in the Looney Tunes show. In his Looney Tunes show incarnation, he's not stupid. He's intelligent, but has a short attention span, short-term memory problems, and has trouble communicating, often not quite comprehending what other people are saying or making wild assumptions and being completely shocked when he finds out that they weren't actually on the same page.
So ADHD.
And whatever happened to the horse? I've never seen a horse with purple eyes in any Looney Tunes short. If Daffy survived the accident and came out of it with a trauma-induced neurological disorder, maybe his coworker has fared worse.
Oh, no.
Daffy's lucky to be alive.
That's great.
Oh, I love these kinds of fan theories that people take what could, theoretically, it should be a very simple thing and dwell on it to the point that they come up with this and find this contextual evidence to support it. I'm eating good right now. Okay. So do y'all want to give me some thoughts real quick before I read some comments? Initial thoughts.
Initial thoughts are that I don't know how I want to play this. I think it's interesting that we have this origin story. We don't get many origin stories for cartoon characters, and that it's in the form of a song that is also, coincidentally or not, used for the remainder of the existence of the Looney Tunes. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe it means much more than we think it does, because that it is used so much and that it was featured and we know the words. I don't know, this might be have some weight to it.
Yeah, to me it's really sad. It's a sad theory, but honestly it would explain a lot with Daffy's character.
Because I'm trying to think of all the Looney Tunes, and they're Looney Tunes, that's why they have that name.
Yeah.
And they all have their quirks, right? But from what I can think, he is the only one that really seems like a loon. Especially like the jump up and down. The way he can just go,
and bounce thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Everyone else seems to kind of
devil.
Well, but he's like crazy. An animal.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, so is Daffy Duck. He's an animal.
He's more of an animal.
He's more like, that basic instinct animal. What was it they called it in Zootopia when they're being primal? Maybe it's their primal brain. He has more of a primal brain. Daffy Duck is a little. He is intelligent. OP talked about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a pretty smart fellow.
Mm.
Well, if you think about it, all of the characters have some sort of thing that makes them a little crazy, and all of them have some sort of thing that kind of gives them a little bit of a speech impediment in one way or another. Like Porky Pig stutters, Foghorn Leghorn, he has to have a long
he stutters too,
drawl,
doesn't he?
And he stutters a little bit, yeah.
Sylvester has a lisp.
Yeah.
And Daffy. Tweety Bird
Tweety
can't
has
say
a Tweety.
his R's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny doesn't have one, right?
He has that's an accent.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah. Most of them do. Not all of them, but yeah. Let's continue.
Okay, why don't we go on to some comments? This might stir up some more for us. So Acrobatic.1634 said, one could point out the mean and greedy Daffy, but even this one has a certain, quote, strange air about him, and brain damage can also lead to increased aggression. So true. Frontal lobe trauma leads to that. Next is, first of all, Chowdare. Sorry, OP. This commenter is Chowdare, but I just wanted to say Chowdare. I don't know what this version of Daffy would be called, but my quote default version of Daffy was usually surly, competitive, and confrontational. Think duck season, rabbit season attitude, like the scene we acted out. This was the version that would appear in 99% of the Daffy episodes seen in that compilation show that apparently changes its name from time to time. I think they're talking about when it goes back and forth between Merry Melodies and Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
In the 90s, it was called the Bugs Bunny and Tweety Show. and was mainly filled with shorts from the 50s and 60s. I wonder if this version had any brain damage. I remember it being very jarring to me seeing how he was represented in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because the version seen there was the, quote, bounce away and hoot version. I guess this would be Daffy Prime, since he was the original wacky version that you're talking about.
So is Chowder essentially saying that there are variants of Daffy now?
That's what it sounds
Maybe.
like. Yes.
There's multiversal
Yes.
versions. I love that. Okay, and so OP comes back and is going to respond to all these comments here of, I feel it's important to point out that brain damage doesn't come in just one form. Brain damage is just damage to the brain. Brain damage can lead to all sorts of neurological disorders, memory issues, loss of cognitive function, seizures, death, etc. It's not out of the realm of possibility for someone to receive head trauma and come out of it with rage/jealousy issues that they didn't have before. For example, truth be told, I consider the version of Daffy from the 40s through the 60s to be as screwy as the others, just in more subtle ways. He's unhinged, hot-headed, narcissistic, and regularly shows signs of borderline personality disorder. And nowhere is this made more clear than in the short where Daffy is tormented by the animator. That's exactly what I was thinking when I started reading this paragraph. When he's on a blank page and then he'll get drawn, like he has a flower head at one point. And Daffy's tormented by the animator to the point of being erased, leaving only his voice. No matter how far the animator pushed him, Daffy remained distinctly Daffy. The animator could take away everything except his identity. So we've got a little timeline here. 30s, completely loony. 40s to 60s, unhinged, rage issues. And then the Looney Tunes show, attention and memory problems. It's also important to note that the characters each evolved. Bugs wasn't always the cool and confident embodiment of karma that he is. Sometimes he was sadistic and went out of his way to screw with people who did nothing to him. Audiences didn't like it, so the Schlesinger team adapted. Likewise, when fleshing out Daffy, he may have started out angry and competitive after the redesign, but as the years go by, he gets more and more unhinged. The thing with Daffy is that they wanted his craziness to be subtle and believable, like someone you might actually find in the wild. What? Okay, that's how he goes from hoot hoot to jealous rage machine to unhinged to that one friend with the attention span of a goldfish. I love that sentence. Okay. All of these iterations have one thing in common. They're dysfunctional, like the Hoot Hoot incarnation, or barely functional, like the Looney Tunes show incarnation. Oh my gosh. That's the best sentence I think I've ever read in a theory or even in a comment. From Hoot Hoot to jealous rage machine to unhinged to that one friend with the attention span of a goldfish. That's excellent.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Does that help fuel any feelings towards ratings for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's helped me kind of solidify and lock down what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, I like that this guy did give us a timeline, and I think it's possible maybe that if you do have an injury, it develops, changes you over time. You know how your body might adjust to it. So that's just something else to think about as well.
I think that's true that with some traumatic brain injuries, I mean, so for like in professional sports world, it's a progression. You can get the injury at a certain point in time. It might not start showing signs until like 20 years later, and then it progressively increases. Same thing with things like Tourette's. I've recently learned that you can develop Tourette's, and then it can go away and resolve on its own, or it can just go away for a little while and it can go back and forth. So yes, all of these behaviors, I mean, the brain is just still such an enigma to us that, these things can come and go. Okay. So Michael, do you want to start us out with ratings on this one?
Sure. I think I am going to rate this one as plausible, just with all the evidence provided. It just makes sense to me. I don't think it's quite to the genius level. I don't know if I prefer this to actual canon, but like this, I could see where a lot of people could think that this is actually the truth. So yeah, I'm giving it a straight plausible.
Kim, Mike, or Spencer?
I agree that I believe this is plausible. The reason why I'm not going for genius is because ultimately, I don't know if cartoon Looney Tunes need like a backstory, an origin story for why they are the way they are. Yeah. But I think that if we want to say that this is the same Daffy from the 30s, it's a great explanation.
It is the Daffy from the 30s. This is from 1938.
I know, that's what I'm saying. If we're going to say that that the one we see today and throughout time is the same one,
they're all
like
the
they didn't
same
like
one.
reboot him or something, all the same one. Yeah, I think this is a great way to see that he was in a merry-go-round accident, which is as tragic as they come, and he hurts his head. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we have decades of entertainment for it.
Now, see, I was waiting for one of you to bring up all of the injury that he endures before our eyes over those decades,
you
and why that didn't have any kind of... No, because I'm going to say that this is genius, and I like it the way it is.
Or Sylvester, like getting the big bump on their head going up.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
And so I think it's genius, particularly if you can take a specific thing from an actual episode as your evidence. And that's pretty solid evidence to me. And the way they posited that, I think that was great writing as far as OP putting out their theory. So I like it.
Can I change my rating? Fits. I want to say it's genius too.
I'm going genius. Yes, you can definitely say it's genius, Spencer.
Okay.
All right.
Because
change the record book. He's genius.
Yeah, I'm changing it to genius because there's nothing that really refutes it. Because there's no way you really can. It's not like there's an episode where he says, you know what? I'm just the way that I am. I never had brain damage when I was younger. So it's a great explanation that never gets disproven. So sure, genius. He is the way he had a merry-go-round accident, and I feel really sorry for his horse friend that didn't make it.
Oh, the horse with the lavender eyes.
So this is the time of the show where we want to take a serious moment to reach out to anyone who knows any merry-go-round accident victims. Please feel free to call 1-800-BRAIN-DEAD, and you'll get the support that you need.
Well, Laura?
Spencer?
Michael?
Guys?
It's just about time to bring this episode to a close, but before we do, I've got to tell you, so when I was browsing Reddit looking for Endgame stuff, I came across this fascinating detail that I just figured I had to share since it's relevant.
Michael's face looks so excited right now.
So
this is going to be wonderful and enlightening.
Oh, no, it is.
And you're going to love it.
Torrent141 pointed out that in Avengers Endgame 2019, Tony has more of bearded facial hair approach than Howard, who sports a full mustache. This is a stark contrast.
Oh.
Well done.
Oh.
It's so dumb, but it's great. That is genius.
I love it. Yeah, that one gets a genius rating for me.
Good job, Torrent 141. Yeah, you got a genius on that one. All right. Well, on that note, this has been Fan Theory Queries. I'm Laura.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Spencer. Join us next time as we analyze more fan theories and ask queries such as, in the 90s sitcom Family Matters, who pays for the damage that Steve Urkel causes to the Winslow's house? Hint, it's not Waldo Faldo or Little Richard.